Hello, I'm Robert Martinez, State Historian of New Mexico. This is New Mexico History in 10 minutes. Well, the Spanish colony of 1598 has an auspicious beginning. As you can imagine, they are up in the area of Okeawinge. They've established their own community there, and that's where they will stay for roughly 8 years or so. But the relationship between the Spanish and the Pueblos is shaky. Imagine Juan de Oñate and his colonists moving north, moving through all the Pueblos that we all know and love now. And he's seemingly getting an agreement with them to be subjects of the Spanish monarch and the Catholic Church. But, you know, we have to remember the Pueblos were not passive players in this drama. They were checking out the Spaniards. They were seeing what the Spaniards were bringing, what they had to offer, and if this was a relationship that could be ongoing or if they should just get rid of these foreigners. Oñate himself is trying to fulfill his contract. He takes soldiers to explore. At one point, he's off looking for mineral wealth, and some Pueblo warriors attack the colony, and there's a woman, Doña Eufemia de Sosa. She's the wife of one of the colonists who they say is a very brave lady. She rallies the soldiers. She talks to them, and she tells them, you know, stop being wimps. Take up arms and show that you are the soldiers that everyone should be proud of. And so they fend off the warriors. But this is the sort of thing that's going on. Now, let's remember, Oñate did not get an agreement with every Pueblo. Out west, there's a Pueblo called Acoma. And Acoma is a very proud community, as they all are. But they're very independent. They're way out in the desert on a high peñol, a big rock, heavily fortified. And so at one point, the leaders of Acoma, they send some people to check out the Spanish, to see what are they doing, what are they all about. Well, the story goes that they arrive when the Spanish are having one of their celebrations. And as you can imagine, they're putting on a play, Moros y Cristianos. Remember back at La Toma, south of Juarez, El Paso, where they did the play, Moros y Cristianos? Well, during these plays, Spanish people would act like Moors and Christians, and they would have mock battles, probably with swords and mock shots from arquebus, from muskets, pretending to die, pretending to win, and pretending to lose. Well, they witness one of these plays, and they see that the Spaniards' fire stick, the musket, it doesn't kill them because it shows them shooting the enemy, and then they get up later and they celebrate and have a good time. And so they go back and report this, and it's a fatal mistake, because what happens is the Acomans think that the Spaniards' weapons aren't dangerous. Well, at one point, Juan de Oñate sends one of his nephews. He has two nephews with him, Juan de Zaldivar and Vicente de Zaldivar. Well, he sends Juan with some soldiers out to establish relations with the Acoma people. This would have been probably late 1598. And depending on which side you hear, the Spaniards demanded food and shelter. Very pushy, very arrogant. But the story goes that as the Spaniards ascended the big rock, when they got up there, supposedly they were divided up and told, well, there's food in this dwelling, there's blankets in this, and etc. And once the Spaniards were divided, Acoma warriors fell on them, and the Spaniards were essentially had the heck knocked out of them by the Acomans. Some were killed, others fell off the peñol to die, and others just luckily landed on a sand dune and survived. So, poor Juan de Zaldivar, he's killed in this skirmish, and the ones that survived, the Spanish that survived, they head back to let Juan de Oñate know what happened. As you can imagine, this is very alarming for the Spaniards, because if one pueblo revolts, then others could revolt, and it could become a major problem for them. So Oñate consults the Franciscan priests he brought. Again, he has about 10 priests with him. And they say that he has cause for a just war because they were attacked by the Acoma people. So he sends Juan's brother Vicente with about 70 men to Acoma with arms, with cannon, horses, swords, arquebuses, and they go to take on the Acoma people and punish them. The story goes that it was a rough battle. The Acomans were fierce warriors. They held off for about 2 days, but they couldn't hold off against steel and cannon. There were cases of confusion. One of Oñate's colonists named Archuleta, he was a Basque from Spain. He apparently accidentally killed one of his friends, another Spaniard, a case of friendly fire. But other Spaniards were there. Hernan Martin Serrano, the first Martinez, was there. And they eventually get up the rock. Quite an amazing story, and they defeat the Acoma people. Well, this has come to be known as the massacre at Acoma, because what happens then is Oñate feels he must punish them. And so the story is that all the males over the age of 24 had a foot cut off. And that's brutal. That's pretty brutal. When you look back into Spanish history, the Visigoths were there and Romans. It was actually quite the tradition that when you defeated an enemy, you cut off a part of their hand or the tip of their nose as a way of showing that you defeated them. And I'm not sure, maybe that sort of tradition had been passed down. We know Oñate had fought fierce warriors, the Chichimeca and the Zacatecas area, as a youth when he was growing up. But we don't know exactly what happened. He did this according to stories and documents, but there have been people who have challenged that idea, the whole point being that why would these people, the Spaniards, why would they want to maim a good portion of the population who could be workers for them? Also, younger people, women, children, and boys were supposedly put into servitude for the Spaniards from Acoma. It's a mess, as you can imagine. Add to this the controversy. It's controversial then, and it's still controversial. Again, as I said, some have challenged that, saying that some people think that Oñate only had their toes cut off. Well, I don't know if that's any better. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but it's pretty bad. And we know it's bad, and I'm going to tell you why we know. Oñate gets reinforcements in 1600. There are people with names like López Holguín and Baca who come with this group. And pretty soon, the colonists themselves are starting to get very unhappy with Oñate. He's always gone. They're not really settled. As you can imagine, after Acoma, the Pueblo people are maybe starting to think, maybe this isn't a good idea. Add to that supposedly, Oñate was not treating the colonists very nicely. So what happens is, this starts to fall apart. Most of the colonists, while Oñate is off exploring, desert. They head back south. They've had enough of Oñate. They've had enough of New Mexico and the Pueblos. And it leaves a fairly small group of, I always say, cabezudos, hard-headed people who weren't going to leave. Again, those are the people with the names like Martinez, Martin Serrano, Romero, Montoya, Baca, Chavez, Holguín. There are others. But, you know, they stay on to fight another day and establish a Spanish colony here in New Mexico. But what this all ends up meaning is that Oñate is ultimately arrested and sent down to Mexico City in chains. He's accused of abusing Indians. He's accused of abusing Spanish colonists. So we have to keep all of this in mind when we think about Oñate. I want to have a balanced view because he is, in a sense, the founding father of Hispanic New Mexico culture. Although one can say that it was a founding that didn't last, because we'll see 80 years later, the Pueblos will revolt and kick the Spanish colonists out of New Mexico. So that's it for now. Let's get ready to see what happens between 1600 and 1680 in La Nueva Mexico. Hasta pronto. Goodbye.